All right, let's talk about something we've all wanted at some point, a shot of instant confidence right when we need it most. Well, today we're actually going to build a psychological toolkit for that. We're going to explore some real, science-backed tools you can use to generate that feeling pretty much on demand. You know the feeling, right? You've got that huge presentation, a first date, maybe a really tough conversation coming up. And in that moment, all you can think is, man, if only I could just flip a switch and feel confident. Turns out, there are techniques that get you pretty darn close to that. But first, we have to tackle this whole idea of instant confidence. I mean, is it really a myth? Can you truly just conjure it out of thin air when the pressure's on? Or, is there a little more to the story? To get to the bottom of that, we have to get super clear on what it is we're trying to build. Because honestly, a lot of us are using the wrong mental tools for the job, and that's exactly why our attempts to feel more confident sometimes just fall flat. And this brings us to a really crucial distinction, the difference between your self-esteem and your self-confidence. Now, they sound like the same thing, but they are fundamentally different, and knowing which one you need to work on is absolutely key. So let's break this down. Think of self-esteem as your core belief about your own value as a human being. It's the answer to the question, am I a worthy person? Self-confidence, on the other hand, is all about the situation. It's your belief in your ability to handle a specific thing. It asks, can I nail this presentation? And getting this difference is so important because the tools we're talking about today, they're mostly for building that situational self-confidence. And here is exactly why that distinction is a game changer. When you have sky-high confidence in your job, for instance, but it's all sitting on this shaky foundation of low self-esteem, well, you get something called fragile competence. Your entire sense of who you are gets tangled up in how well you perform. So one little mistake doesn't just feel like a failure, it feels like proof that you, as a person, are worthless. That's a dangerous place to be. Okay, so now that we've got that foundation straight, let's open up our toolkit. First up, we're going to look at techniques to actually rewire your inner narrative. That voice in your head and the stories it tells you. Our first tool comes straight out of cognitive behavioral therapy, or CBT, and it's called cognitive reframing. This is basically a system for catching, challenging, and then changing those automatic negative thoughts that can totally torpedo your confidence before you even get started. Just look at the difference here. The before thought, that's a classic downward spiral, right? One tiny event leads to an absolute catastrophe. But the reframed thought, it doesn't just pretend everything is sunshine and rainbows. It injects a dose of reality. It asks, what else could be true? And pulls in actual evidence, like your last positive review. This isn't about blind positivity. It's about being more balanced and realistic. All right, our next mental tool is something called NLP anchoring from neuro-linguistic programming. And this is a really fascinating one. The whole idea is to create a kind of emotional shortcut. You create a physical trigger that you can use to instantly call up a feeling of confidence or calm whenever you need it. And it's actually pretty simple to set one up. You just vividly remember a time when you felt absolutely on top of your game, totally unstoppable. Then, right at the peak of that amazing feeling, you do a simple, unique physical action, like pressing your thumb and ring finger together firmly. You do this a few times, and you're literally building a new connection in your brain. Then, right before that big meeting, you just fire the anchor, and boom, that confident feeling can come rushing right back. So, we've covered the internal mind games. But what about our bodies? Can we actually use our physical actions to change how we feel on the inside? I mean, is it really possible to act your way into feeling more confident? Well, the science behind this is pretty cool. It's based on a principle called self-perception theory. And in simple terms, it means your brain is always watching you for clues about who you are. So when you stand up a little straighter, make good eye contact, speak clearly, even if you're shaking on the inside, you're sending a powerful signal back to your own brain that says, hey, I must be the kind of person who's confident. Now, this whole idea was made famous by a concept I'm sure you've heard of, power posing. The theory was so simple and appealing. Just stand in an expansive, powerful pose, like the Wonder Woman stance, and you'll actually feel more powerful and confident. But the science behind it got a little messy. The original study back in 2010 made some huge claims. It basically said that just 2 minutes of power posing could physically change your hormones. We're talking an increase in testosterone, the dominance hormone, and a decrease in cortisol, the stress hormone. The promise was incredible. You could literally fake it till you become it on a biological level. But then, science did what it's supposed to do. Other researchers tried to replicate the findings, and
They couldn't. Study after study failed to find those same hormonal changes. It got to the point where, in 2016, the lead author of the original paper publicly stated she no longer believed the hormonal effects were real. But that's not the end of the story. While the hormone claims fell apart, some research does still suggest that posing can make people feel subjectively more powerful. So the takeaway is a bit more nuanced. It probably won't change your body chemistry, but it might still give your mindset a little boost.
So, this all leads us to a really critical final point. If we're going to act as if or fake it till we make it, how in the world do we do that without feeling like a total fraud? How do we build confidence with integrity? And this right here is maybe the most important reframe of all. When you do it right, acting as if isn't about being deceptive. It's a developmental strategy. You're not lying about who you are. You are practicing being the person you are in the process of becoming.
And to make sure you're doing this ethically, you can follow this simple blueprint. First, be transparent. It's the difference between saying, I'm confident I can handle this project, versus, oh yeah, I know everything about this. Second, you have to commit to growth. If you're going to project confidence, you have an obligation to put in the work to build the actual competence to back it up. And third, authenticity. Stretch your comfort zone for sure, but don't do something that violates who you fundamentally are.
And this is where another great tool, visualization, fits in perfectly. By mentally rehearsing a successful outcome, picturing that presentation going amazingly well, seeing yourself ace the interview, you're not just daydreaming, you're actually improving your focus, calming your anxiety, and building the neural pathways for real skill. This is the training that backs up that growth commitment we just talked about. So at the end of the day, this whole toolkit, it's not about being fake. The goal is to use these psychological principles to close the gap between the person you are right now and the person you know you're capable of becoming. It's about accelerating that journey. So I want to leave you with this question. Forget about faking it. What is one small, real action you can take today? Maybe it's reframing just one negative thought, or standing a little taller for 5 minutes, or visualizing one success to start becoming that more confident version of yourself.